On a peaceful day in December 1963, in Edo State, Nigeria, a son was welcomed into the Oyakhilome family. The boy would eventually develop into one of the most powerful preachers of the 21st century. Yet at that time, nobody was aware of what fate had planned. Growing up in a deeply religious Christian household, Chris Oyakhilome was the third of 7 siblings, and from a young age, faith remained a steadfast foundation in his life. His parents, Tim and Angelina Oyakhilome, nurtured within him a profound affection for God. However, they could not have foreseen the extent to which his belief would lead him. During his teenage years, Chris went to Edo College, where he excelled not only for his intellect but also for his leadership abilities. However, his narrative genuinely started to develop when he was awarded a scholarship to pursue architecture at Ambrose Ali University. It was while he was there that the foundations of his ministry were established. The late 1980s in Nigeria were a chaotic period. Universities suffered from cult-related violence, leaving students in fear. Amidst the turmoil, Chris Oyakhilome established Youth for Christ, a student group that rapidly grew to be the largest on campus. His message was unmistakable. Faith provided the solution to the world's uncertainty. By 1987, Chris had earned his degree, but rather than following a path in architecture, he chose a bold route to devote his life completely to sharing the gospel. It was a choice that would transform not just his existence, but also the futures of countless others. In 1987, Pastor Chris Oyakhilome embarked on his quest to build something extraordinary, armed with unwavering faith and a vision that challenged conventional boundaries. It all began in Benin City, Nigeria, where he established Christ Embassy. At first, the church was a simple assembly, a light for individuals looking for hope in a challenging world. However, it didn't take long for Pastor Chris's passionate sermons and assertions of miraculous healings to enthrall the crowds. His message encompassed not only salvation, but also the extraordinary strength of faith. News traveled rapidly, and what began as a modest gathering quickly transformed into a powerful movement. In 1989, Pastor Chris realized it was time to grow. He gathered his belongings and relocated to Lagos, Nigeria's vibrant economic center, carrying with him the building blocks of a dynasty. Christ Embassy had evolved from being merely a church into a significant movement. Originating in Lagos, the ministry expanded rapidly, sparking passion in nations worldwide. By the early 2000s, Christ Embassy had expanded beyond Nigeria. It had expanded to more than 100 higher education institutions globally and set up strong branches in the USA, UK, South Africa, and Ghana. Due to this rapid ascent, Pastor Chris transformed from merely a preacher into a religious mogul. The true game-changer, however, arose from Pastor Chris's skill in effortlessly merging faith and technology. His Love World television ministry transcended limits, transmitting his message worldwide and delivering his charismatic sermons into the residences of millions. His devotional, Rhapsody of Realities, translated into more than 1,000 languages, turned into the spiritual guide for a global audience. He had changed from a minister to an international magnate. However, with his ascent to the height of authority and influence came a cost of examination, and soon the world would start to question, what is hidden beneath the shining facade of this empire? By the early 2000s and 10s, Pastor Chris had established himself as one of the richest preachers globally. With a projected net worth of $50 million, his way of life resembled that of nobility, mixing spirituality with luxury, unlike many religious figures prior. In 2012, he purchased a Bombardier Challenger 601 private jet valued at $5 million, symbolizing his international influence and lavish preferences. This airplane wasn't merely a means of travel, it was a declaration. Whether heading to prominent evangelical events in London, Johannesburg, or Dallas, Pastor Chris made sure his journeys were as luxurious as his sermons. However, this was just the start. Luxury wasn't merely an aspect of his life, it was the cornerstone of his persona. His clothing alone reflected his stature, frequently dressed in bespoke Italian suits, complemented by Patek Philippe and Rolex watches, valued in the tens of thousands. He radiated the presence of a billionaire businessman instead of a modest servant of God. His preference for cars reinforced his high-ranking position. His collection included Rolls-Royce Phantoms, Bentley Continentals, and a range of Mercedes-Benz S-Class sedans, guaranteeing that every public appearance radiated opulence. At the same time, his property empire extended across continents, including opulent villas in Nigeria's priciest areas and multi-million-dollar properties in the UK and South Africa. Every property, carefully crafted, showcased a degree of wealth that matched the richest entrepreneurs in the world. However, this vast fortune was accompanied by examination. His detractors posed the timeless query: is it appropriate for a man of God to reside in such opulence? Was his wealth a heavenly blessing for his service? Or was there something else behind it? To his supporters, it was evidence of divine approval. For doubters, it was the greatest paradox. The response, similar to many aspects of Pastor Chris's life, stayed enveloped in uncertainty.
Bring complete cleansing from the crown of her head to the soles of her head. That's it. Her boots, her nerves. And she's walking.
Pastor Chris Oyakhilome's ministry was founded not merely on sermons, but rather on miraculous events. His healing school gained fame, attracting thousands who trusted in his extraordinary powers. The accounts were remarkable. In 2023, a girl from South Africa reportedly healed from extensive burns following her participation in one of his live-streamed events. Doctors had lost hope, stating that her condition would need years of treatment. However, after observing Pastor Chris pray, she asserted that she was unexpectedly healed by morning. The video exploded online, with followers praising it as a sign from the divine. Skeptics, nonetheless, required medical documentation evidence in addition to emotional accounts. None were given. This wasn't the first occasion that Pastor Chris's miracles faced criticism. In 2014, he asserted that he had resurrected more than 50 individuals, a statement that caused a stir within the Christian community. However, the world waited fruitlessly for identities, death records, or hospital verifications. His supporters required no evidence. Their belief was sufficient proof. The debate over his healing miracles intensified when, in 2020, he garnered attention for his conspiracy theories about COVID-19. Pastor Chris announced that 5G technology was associated with the Antichrist, cautioning his followers not to receive the vaccine. He claimed that the pandemic was devised by global elites to dominate the population, a plan he argued was predicted in biblical prophecy. His remarks sparked worldwide outrage, as authorities and health officials deemed him a threat to public health. His YouTube channels faced a temporary suspension, and the UK's broadcasting regulator, Ofcom, penalized his TV station for disseminating false information. To his followers, he was merely a prophet revealing the truth. For them, each effort to mute him served as evidence that he was correct, that sinister forces were plotting against a servant of God. Was Pastor Chris Oyakhilome a genuine healer revealing concealed motives, or was he a skilled promoter creating the perfect deception? The enigma persists. With significant influence comes substantial controversy, and Pastor Chris was no different. In 2013, Christ Embassy UK was subjected to financial scrutiny after an investigation uncovered the mismanagement of $2.5 million in charitable funds. The UK Charity Commission initiated an inquiry into the church's financial matters, revealing irregularities that caused concern among both religious and governmental entities. The investigation prompted numerous resignations from the church's trustees, and bank accounts with $750,000 were frozen while further inquiries took place. Although Christ Embassy staunchly rejected any misconduct, asserting that the inquiry was driven by outside adversaries, the harm had already occurred. Critics raised doubts about a religious organization hoarding that much wealth, whereas supporters claimed that Pastor Chris was being unjustly singled out. In the end, the commission's interim manager intervened to reorganize financial operations, yet the scandal took a lasting toll on the church's reputation. Nevertheless, the most surprising personal controversy emerged in 2014 when Pastor Chris's union with Anita Oyakhilome fell apart in front of the public. Their marriage had long been regarded as a symbol of Christian union, making their abrupt and widely reported split all the more surprising. Rumors circulated widely. Was it merely a marital crisis, or did deeper concealed conflicts exist within Christ Embassy? Reports suggested conflicts regarding church leadership, with Anita reportedly feeling excluded from key decision-making activities. Some murmured about the challenges of being apart, as Pastor Chris's international ministry often required him to be away for long durations. Although Anita eventually relocated to the UK and tried to separate herself from the church, Pastor Chris remained silent, not publicly discussing the specifics of their separation. Even now, the actual causes of their divorce are still cloaked in obscurity, sparking continuous discussion among both supporters and doubters. Was it just a marriage that reached its end, or were there deeper issues occurring behind the pulpit than what appeared? Currently, Pastor Chris Oyakhilome is recognized as one of the most significant and contentious religious leaders of our era. His kingdom stays resolute, and his supporters remain loyal. However, his tale is far from finished. Through a ministry that reaches across continents and a way of life that competes with the richest business tycoons, Pastor Chris has created an aura of celestial abundance. His congregations are packed with followers who view him not merely as a preacher, but as a channel for miracles, achievement, and divine blessings. However, beyond the boundaries of Christ Embassy, doubters express concerns regarding the empire he has constructed. They examine his extravagant way of living, his assertions of extraordinary healings, and the wealth that sustains his ministry. Is he an innovator who has utilized the strength of belief to change countless lives? Or is he an expert in religious performance, skillfully crafting an image of heavenly selection? The response varies based on whom you consult. His devotees point to accounts of healing, wealth, and extraordinary experiences that they link to his teachings. His detractors highlight unproven miracle assertions, financial disputes, and a ministry that resembles a corporate empire rather than a conventional church. In spite of the criticism, Pastor Chris persists in preaching, traveling by private jets, and capturing the focus of millions. His worldwide impact appears to be intensifying, his riches becoming broader, and his preachings more enthralling. Each disclosure regarding his life further intensifies the enigma. What genuinely motivates Pastor Chris Oyakhilome? Is it steadfast belief, unquenchable drive, or an intricate mix of the two? One thing is certain: his narrative continues to unfold. With each miracle, every scandal, and every hushed truth, Pastor Chris Oyakhilome's life as a billionaire keeps evolving, captivating the world as it watches, ponders, and speculates on what occurs next. As we uncover the intricacies of Pastor Chris Oyakhilome's billionaire empire, his affluence, impact, miracles, and controversies, one question lingers: is this narrative of divine destiny or human effort? The ultimate revelation will render you voiceless. We invite you to share your opinions in the comments section below.